A'udhu billahi minash shaitanir rajim. Bismillahir rahmanir rahim. Assalamu alaikum all, and thank you for joining us. With me tonight, I have Brother Ali Arabaci. Assalamu alaikum, Mr. Ali.
Wa alaikum assalam wa rahmatullah.
Just a quick introduction before we get started, sir. Brother Ali Arabaci is the principal of Irfan College. He's also my principal, a Sydney-based Islamic school. He's also the current secretary for the Islamic Schools Association of Australia, and which is an umbrella organisation that facilitates advocacy and collaboration amongst Islamic schools. When you're ready, sir, we'll get started.
Inshallah.
Okay, so tonight we're focusing on inspiring commitment in Islamic schools. And my first question is, gaining educator commitment to Islamic schools is a challenge expressed by many school admin globally. Would you agree in the Australian context?
أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم الحمد لله رب العالمين والصلاة والسلام على رسولنا محمد وعلى آله وصحبه أجمعين. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuhu, Ms. Samah, and all of our listeners. So gaining educator commitment is a challenge expressed by many school admin globally. Would I agree in the Australian context? I would start by first unpacking the notion of challenge. Why is gaining educator commitment in Islamic schools within the Australian context a challenge? So I'd like to start off by just kind of putting a little footnote over here. If we approach our schools as corporate engines that have been designed to produce goods for the status quo, then this could be an underlying factor. Why do we have difficulty gaining educator commitment? First and foremost, I believe that we as educators, we need to have belief in our institutions. We need to have belief in the vision of our schools. We need to have a belief that it's going to be of benefit for all stakeholders involved, fi dunya wal akhirah, in this life and the next. We need to believe that it's got a common purpose that'll be addressing the needs of the Muslim community, that the institution is going to be working for the maslaha, for the benefit of the ummah on a local and international level. So I personally believe, so it's more anecdotal, I personally believe that we have difficulty gaining educator commitment, and this is from a kind of leadership perspective. We as Islamic schools haven't developed an authentic, a relevant, a responsive vision that's based on the needs of the Muslim community and one that has a long-term focus. So I want to unpack a few of these things that I've just shared now. So let's start by vision. Now, the vision of an Islamic school should be long-term. And when I say long-term, I'm not talking about a few decades, 30 years or 50 years long. We need to approach long-term from a civilizational standpoint, centuries. And the reason why I kind of advocate this notion is because 30 to 50 years from a civilizational standpoint is only a drop in the ocean. So you're going to say, Mr. Ali, how could an institution develop a vision that's going to forecast what the needs of the Muslim community should be for the next couple of centuries? It sounds a bit far-fetched, but we don't need to look too far. We can see in our history, Ibn Khaldun, he actually has a thesis in which, in his book, famous book called The Introduction, the Muqaddimah, where he puts forward a theory of civilizations. And it's quite in contrast to the current notions of civilization, where it's progressive in a linear format. Ibn Khaldun maintains that civilizations have a cyclical nature. They have an incline and they have a decline. And when we look at the kind of the most prosperous times in our history, we see one recurring theme, and that is the establishment of a knowledge tradition. So we as Islamic schools, over the next couple of centuries in this long-term vision, need to be working towards or contributing to this idea of establishing a knowledge tradition. Where there is a knowledge tradition, there is life. Where there is knowledge tradition, there is culture. Where there is knowledge tradition, there is civilization. And what do I mean by knowledge tradition? So there's many examples that we can give, but just one particular example is an institution that was established by our predecessors called Baytul Hikmah, the House of Wisdom. And this institution, which was founded by the Caliph of that time, Al-Ma'mun, had a particular focus. So at that time, Hellenistic philosophy is spreading in the Muslim world, and there is, a possible kind of threat to, the theology of Islam, to the orthodoxy of Islam, and hence what the ulama of that time do, they develop a methodology. They're responsive. It's authentic. And they decide that they're going to be facilitating this platform where the ancient Greek texts are going to be translated into Arabic, and all of the ideas are going to be filtered through. They're going to be going through a filtration process to see what is in harmony with Islam and what is contrary to Islam. And this was a need of that particular era. Now, we as the Muslim community over here, or as Islamic schools, we need to first and foremost identify where we are in terms of knowledge tradition and what the needs of the Muslim community is in establishing this knowledge tradition. And we can have a look at it on a micro level and on a macro level. On a micro level, how much ulama, do we have access to over here on a community level that can feed our intellectual and spiritual selves? How many ulama do we have that can contribute to the establishment of such a tradition? And remember, we're talking obviously from a primary and a secondary school perspective, but this is just part and parcel of a knowledge tradition. In the Ottoman intellectual tradition, the Subyan, the child or the Sabi, they will start their education, they say 4 + 4 + 4. When they turn 4 years of age, 4 months and 4 days, the mother will send their child to the madrasa. This was in the Ottoman tradition. So it starts, pre-kindi. Then we have our primary and secondary schools, and then we have our tertiary institutions. And we're very fortunate to have institutions such as sites that we, as a primary school or a secondary school, as school leadership, can collaborate with on an ideas and intellectual level, whether it's curriculum, whether it's pedagogy, etc. So from a long-term perspective, vision needs to have, a civilizational discourse at its center. Another aspect that I'd like to touch up on over here is common purpose. We said that we need to believe in our institutions. If we really want to...
Mr. Ali, so are you telling us now what you ideally would like to see at Irfan College?
Yes, definitely. I'm currently at Irfan College. This is definitely something that we want to aspire towards, where, as a community, we're working, towards establishing knowledge being at the center of our lives and of our communities. And the second thing I'd like to just mention over here is, we said we want to, we have to have belief in our institutions, that it's, participating and supporting and contributing to these institutions, to our schools, is going to be producing solutions for the immediate needs of the Muslim community. So there needs to be a common purpose based on the needs of the Muslim community.
So if we share that purpose, then you'll find that there is more commitment amongst staff members?
This is in my opinion. This is in my opinion. I'll kind of further elaborate on this topic, in a few moments, with some of the factors that make commitment a challenge. But coming back to the common purpose, we need to perceive knowledge as a lifelong tool that's going to assist us earning Allah's pleasure and help us returning to Him in a successful manner as Islamic schools.
Yeah.
If we can nurture this, if we can instill this in our students at the end of our, their schooling experience, this deep knowledge and love of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala and His Messenger, this will hopefully facilitate, a skill, a tool to, for our students that will help them hopefully return to Allah in a pleasing state, rather than perceiving knowledge as something that is consumed. And this is one of the kind of drawbacks of living in a consumer society, and perceiving our schools as a corporate engine.
Yeah. And I guess this is why, as I've mentioned last week, there is a big trend, and rightfully so, in terms of parents opting to homeschool their children. Have you noticed that,
Yep.
Mr. Ali?
Yep, definitely. There is a huge interest, particularly over here in Sydney. A lot of Muslim families that are resorting to homeschooling. They want to provide that specialized environment. And if we were to do a survey, I don't know if there is a survey, of such a nature, just trying to gauge why parents opt for homeschooling. I would say that it's more than likely because we as Islamic schools have failed them, where we've developed an approach, approaching students as a mere number on a quantitative level. Students apply to our schools. If they don't perform above a certain threshold, then we don't accept them. But where is the attitude towards learning?
Yeah.
Why aren't we factoring in their effort?
Yeah.
Why aren't we factoring in their social development? So there is a lot of factors that would contribute to why parents are opting for a more specialized form of education at home.
So then, I guess you understand what type of commitment you'd like from staff members. Can you measure this type of commitment?
Can I measure this type of commitment? I believe you can. First and foremost, it's a bit difficult. You're going to say, Mr. Ali, how can you measure commitment through this concept? I would say heart. Looking at the educator and the heart that they bring to school. And another word for heart could be initiative. We as teachers, we need to be cognizant that we're in a very noble and rewarding profession, an honorable profession.
Yes.
One that requires us to place our students before ourselves, a sense of altruism, a sense of selflessness, and we can see the teachers that take initiative. They go above and beyond the areas of responsibility. We put forward to them, a priority that's part of our school plan. And they will come forward and they will say, Mr. Ali, look, you've proposed this to us. How about we address this in this particular manner? Or they will come forward with a project or with an initiative. So I do believe we can measure commitment in that regard. Another regard, and this is something that we definitely need to model as educators for our students, and a tool that we can measure commitment with, and that is amana, the notion of responsibility. We are very comfortable with the educators that have this deep understanding of amana, that want to give 110% to their responsibilities. And we can see this with those staff members. So I believe amana is also, is also a tool that we can measure commitment with.
Alhamdulillah. And I have to agree with you. I can think of so many educators at our institution that really do embrace amana. It's quite evident, alhamdulillah. What initiatives have you enacted to support educators and foster a sense of commitment?
Okay. I would say the first and probably the most important, initiative would be establishing a vision that's aligned with what I said earlier, and having constant focus, whether it's in our staff meetings, whether it's in professional learning, on our college vision, on our school vision, that this is our vision, this is our mission, these are our expectations, and this is how we're going to get there. Every single one of us is going to play a significant role in helping us achieve this vision. So rather than sitting on the sideline or sitting on the fence and being a spectator, we're in the midst of it all, and we're really making things happen on the ground. And that's what we do as teachers. We're the professionals on the ground, delivering day to day, enacting that vision. So that would be the first initiative. Another initiative that comes to mind is our professional learning communities, which I'm very, very proud about. And I'm more proud of our staff if they're more than likely listening today. May Allah reward them all. They've all been open to the idea. So what we've established is a roster in which our staff on a weekly basis will choose a topic, an area that they believe they've been able to address, or an area that they're working towards, and they share it with their colleagues. It's evidence-based, and now we've also decided to make it go viral. So it's being recorded and it's being uploaded onto our Facebook page if anyone wants to follow, under the Edflix initiative. So why this, I believe, is important in terms of fostering a sense of commitment. We're giving our teachers voice. Yeah. They're the professionals, right? They're the one that's delivering the curriculum. So they're at the forefront, and we're facilitating a platform, acknowledging their hard work, their commitment, their efforts, and saying, we want to hear from you. You're there at the forefront, delivering the content, employing various aspects of pedagogy. In the midst of it all, we want to hear it from you. So that's an initiative that we've implemented.
And I can vouch for what you're saying, because for me, you mentioning initially, well, first and foremost, the importance of sharing a vision and mission. However, you give educators an autonomy to choose how they would like to take part in that. So it's not like you state, well, you're going to do it this way and this way and this way. No, it's a very strength-based approach where you're asking them, what are your strengths? Show us, and what are your interests, and bring that to the table. So that's what I would like to add.
Appreciate that, Ms. Samah. But I do believe, instilling teacher autonomy and giving them that voice is a significant contributor to fostering a sense of commitment. Another kind of aspect of that is being open to projects being brought to the school leadership. And, with yourself, Ms. Samah, may Allah reward you, and all of our teachers that are, doing just some amazing things. I take my hat off to them. You came forward with a permaculture project, which, it gained so much traction. And there was just so much community engagement, parents donating, scholars contributing, may Allah reward all of them. And we just had our students coming on board. Every class planted a tree, and now we're about to reap the fruits of it. Our students. Sorry.
We're enjoying raspberries at the moment, mashallah.
Alhamdulillah. On a whole school level, we've learned sustainability, how
Yeah,
we can use our own kind of, waste to turn into positivity. It's such an amazing thing moving forward into the 21st century, something that our kids are completely detached from, living in a concrete jungle, subhanallah.
but
So,
again,
yeah.
mentioning working in a partnership kind of relationship, where I had requested and you had accepted, and you encouraged. So I think that's what it takes as well. Not only it coming from exec, but exec allowing teachers to trial these things out.
Yeah. Look, Miss, I think um, the corporate nature that schools have become a deterrent for teachers. Teachers are traumatized by some of the experiences that they've had, and I see it in the interviews and the questions that they put forward. So, being so kind of, bogged down or coming with this baggage, from my experience, I've seen that some educators are very reluctant, to take initiative and put their hand up and approach leadership, due to the previous experiences that they've had, in their previous experiences.
Yeah, yeah. Alhamdulillah. What advice might you give to other school admin who feel gaining staff commitment is a real struggle?
This is a tough one. It is very subjective, of course. It's anecdotal. It's my personal opinion. May Allah forgive me for my shortcomings and make it of benefit.
Oh, that's shortcoming.
First and foremost, I think we need to identify why there is a lack of commitment. What's the cause? What's the source of this lack of commitment? Once
Yeah.
we identify the lack of commitment or the source for the lack of commitment, we need to evaluate these courses, these causes, and then assess whether it aligns with the vision of the
Mhm.
school, and the culture that we want to promote.
I agree, sir,
Um,
but how do you identify these issues?
okay, so the first step would be listening
Yes.
to our staff. This could be done through a formal survey. This could be done by employing a third party if staff may feel a little more comfortable in sharing some of their views. But personally speaking, what has really helped me in my experience as a school principal is trying to be approachable,
And I think
and keeping that.
you do have that open door policy.
We try to. Things can get a bit difficult at times, especially with end of year approaching. But I can't recall once that I've actually turned back one of my teachers if they wanted to speak with me. So the leadership needs to be approachable, and, have an open ear and open heart and listen, to their problems. And then we sit down, evaluate the sources, do some mashwara. This is very, very important. If we want the barakah of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, there needs to be some consultation in there. Sit down with the right minds, and seek some advice, and have a look at whether the causes of the lack of commitment is aligning with the vision of the college, of where we want to head to, and the culture that we want to be promoting and establishing at school.
Alhamdulillah. We'll just refer to the poll because I forgot to mention that. I'm not sure if you've seen the poll this week, Mr. Ali.
Yeah, I've had a brief look.
Okay. So this week's gritty question was, what could be the factors as to why teachers may lack commitment in Islamic schools? And majority of our members had voted that staff are overworked. We had around 20 members vote so. Teacher rights not being met. We had 13 members vote teacher rights not being met. What do you think they mean by that, Mr. Ali?
Okay, so teachers being overworked, again, I think it comes back down to the status quo of education right now, perceiving our schools as this corporate engine or a factory line. Students are measured against standards and outcomes, and this does bring some immense pressure on students, because if students aren't meeting outcomes, then they're considered to be a failure. So obviously we can kind of attribute the first idea. 20 participants, did you say, Ms. Summer, that have voted?
20 overworked, 13
overworked.
Yeah, 13 with their rights, feeling as though their rights not being met.
And in terms of the rights, so this was a process that we had to go through our school. When I first picked up as a principal, we didn't have an agreement or an award that we were basing our teacher salaries or terms and conditions, whether it be leave, etc. on. But I saw that it was causing a form of angst amongst the staff, and I brought it to my college board, and they accepted it, and we proposed to the staff that we're going to be following a particular award, and we moved on. So there may be some schools out there that are not following a particular agreement, or there's other schools that are offering more in terms of terms and conditions, teacher rights than others. So that I can understand why teachers have placed a high number of votes in that particular question.
Yeah, I'll mention one more because it also received a lot of votes. Lack of professional learning opportunities.
Yeah. Again, so I think this is tied into the first one. If we're kind of if we're, what's the word? If we're so overcome or overwhelmed by the administrative tasks, pretty much like a checklist, things that we need to tick off, teachers could be a bit reluctant for professional growth. But again, I think that leadership has an important role to play when it comes to promoting professional growth. And we don't need to look too far. That's what the research says. The research says that the greatest contributor to achieving student outcomes is teacher effectiveness. So the more our teachers, our educators upskill themselves, enhance their knowledge, their teaching repository, this is going to have more of a positive impact on our kids. So in every Islamic school, this needs to be a priority that's embedded in the annual plan, the school plan, or even the strategic plan of the school.
Thank you, Mr. Ali. I would like to thank you for your time you spent with us. And
thank you, Ms. Summer.
Share something quite personal to end it. Before teaching at Irfan, I was very pro-public, and I still am. I think they do a lot of great things, mashallah, for our communities. But I was very hesitant to apply to an Islamic school because of everything you hear, and I was quite worried about what it would be like to experience that. And as you've mentioned about treating students as if they're just numbers. So coming into Irfan, hesitant, and then within the first few months just warming up to this environment, and just witnessing the transparency with exec and our staff members, and in terms of their intention, your intention, how pure it is, mashallah, I can really vouch for that. I'm just really appreciative of that, and it's been a wonderful 2.5 years, alhamdulillah. I feel as though there's a lot of soul and warmth and heart at our school, and I want to thank you for that, Mr. Ali.
Thank you very much, Ms. Samah. To be honest, this comes back down to the staff and them taking initiative and fulfilling their amana. And imagine every school, fostered spiritual growth, not only for our students but our staff. Imagine that. It'd be a very different world, and a very different community, where we come to school for, you know, the motive rather than our fortnightly pay packet. It's spiritual growth. You come to school and your brother and your sister remind you of Allah and our ultimate return. If we can have, you know, this kind of an environment in our Islamic schools, I believe we would have achieved a lot of things.
This is my home away from home, Mr. Ali. Honestly.
Alhamdulillah. May Allah forgive us and keep us steadfast, inshallah.
Amen, inshallah. Okay, I'm going to wrap it up. If you do have any resources you'd like to share with us, Mr. Ali, pass them and I'll post them onto the Facebook group.
Sure.
For members who do have any questions, they can keep posting, inshallah, and perhaps you can have a look at that, Mr. Ali, and get back to them. Okay, all right. Assalamu alaikum, sir.
Alaikum salam wa rahmatullah.